right, welcome in. We have two fantasy drafts left this season, and our second to last starts now. WATD Fantasy Draft, and it is a very, very special one. Happy Thanksgiving week, folks. It is time for the Thanksgiving Day WATD Fantasy Draft. So the boards, in some regards, reset. Everybody who has obviously been unavailable during the playoffs is back available, except for players who will be playing at Gillette. Now it's the inverse. So if your team's still in it and you're going on to play at Gillette next week, you won't be draft eligible this week. But all of the other teams who are playing their final game of the season this week are draft eligible, but only the seniors. Just something we like to do on Thanksgiving. Give a nod to the guys that are playing their final games of their high school career. So, Quinn, Johnny, and Brendan with you, WATD Fantasy Draft time. And the order this week is going to be Brendan, Johnny, Quinn. So we just continue on right through our rotation. Before we get into the draft, we're very excited. We're going to be carrying two of the Super Bowl games next week, and the times are official. It's going to be Duxbury versus Scituate at 3 p.m. on Thursday, followed by Randolph versus West Boylston on 3 p.m. at 3 p.m. on Friday. So we'll have both those games on 95.9 WATD. Very excited to be carrying them both, and I'm sure that all three of us will be part of the broadcast in some form or fashion. So with that, let's get into the fantasy draft. And Brendan, you can take it right to the podium. You are up first here. Round one kicks off.
Now, this is a guy who's coming off a deep playoff run. Norwell just coming up short last week. Now they're going to be coming out for revenge, I think, trying to close the season and some of their careers on a big note. And that's why I'm going to go with a running back with Will Bostrom. They might get tricky. They might add a few passing plays, a few more than usual, I would expect, because it's their last one. But I still think they're going to rely on him for the most part.
Well, I think deserving, kind of fitting as far as as far as things go for these seniors, right? Like this has been a great class, and Will has for so long been such a big part of that. 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. That's really, really impressive consistency. Was a huge part of what they did. Really helped them early in the season when they were without their quarterback, Jack Lucarelli. And I just think a great captain for them. And so final time he'll be lacing them up for the Clippers. They came up just a little bit short this past week against Hudson, more touchdown shy, 8 points shy of going to Gillette. So I like the pick. Will's been fantastic, and I'm sure making another great case to go back to back as league MVP. All right, Johnny.
I'm gonna go to the storied Whitman-Hanson Abington matchup to start. I'm gonna go Brady Markowski, running back. I mean, that's no matter how the two teams are, that's always a great game, always an exciting game that they get up for, as most of these Thanksgiving games are. But I think Brady is set to end on a high note there.
I think probably one of the real underrated Thanksgiving Day matchups on the South Shore. I mean, that's just a really, really exciting one. Two towns that have an awful lot of passion, two towns that for so many years have been built on just pure grit. And I think year to year a great matchup, and I think this one should be no different. I think Whitman-Hanson had a tough season, obviously, but part of that was just how good the Patriot League was this year, how good their side of the league was this year. And for Abington, they had a great season, came up a little bit short in the playoffs, dropping out in the Elite Eight, but I think that level field here on Thanksgiving, you throw everything before that day out, and Brady Markowski's been, I know he's one of Zach Patello's absolute favorite players that he's coached. I think he's poised for a big game. So good pick, Brendan. All right, 2 running backs off the board to start the draft. I'm going to go to the receiver room first, and I'm going to go with a guy who really plays tight end, right? We've kind of talked about in past weeks, it's a tough position in terms of, production, and there aren't a ton of teams that really do it well with somebody at the tight end position. Plymouth South is one of them, and that's a large part because Logan Watts is fantastic. So I want the captain, Logan Watts, on the board. I think he's just got a ton of heart and is such a big physical player, and was, season for them was tough. They were, playoff eligible, obviously, and just finished one spot out of the postseason. But we're right there. Had a good year, and I think yeah, Logan's an absolute dude. A guy that I really enjoyed watching. Really enjoyed the times I had a pleasure to speak with him, and so I'm happy to have Logan first round. All right, Brendan, take us into round two.
I know I took this guy a few weeks ago, but I feel like this is going to be the matchup with possibly the most points on the Thanksgiving slate. I'm going to go to the North Quincy matchup at Veterans, and I'm going to go with Mikey Galligan again, the stat machine. He might as well be one. If I could think of a comp in the NFL for just his dual ability, maybe Lamar Jackson with how much he runs and is able to throw the ball. So I'm going to go with Mikey Galligan.
Yeah, foolish me. I'm not really sure what I was doing there. I kind of overthought that one. I wanted Mikey Galligan on my board and just said, "Oh, no QBs in the first round. I'll let him hang there, see if somebody grabs." I knew he was going to be one of the three that came off the board, and yeah, maybe I should have pulled the trigger there. But just anecdotally, our season started, doing pre-camp visits, and this past summer I put a story out on the website. It was just players in the area that we were most excited to see return this year, and we're a three-man team over here, and obviously all doing other things too, and it's we're not quite like some of the papers that can sit there and compile these lists. So it was really an off the top of the head kind of thing that we had done a segment on the show, just guys we were excited to see come back for the 2024 season, and Mikey was admittedly foolishly omitted from that list. And I was down at North Quincy, and head coach Ryan Craig, came to do the visits and talk to the captains and interview them for the show and for promos and whatnot. And Coach Craig gave me an earful about not including Mikey Callaghan on that list, and in particular in comparison to some of the other guys that were on that list. And he was right to do so. Mikey goes on and has a record-breaking season. It was a horrible omission on our part. So I'm glad he's not omitted here. He certainly played himself into a spot deserving to be one of the three quarterbacks to come off the board on Thanksgiving, because he's had an unbelievable career and an unbelievable season. So, yeah, Mikey Galligan, good pick, Brendan. All right, Johnny.
I'm going to go to a matchup that I believe it's the first year back. This is the first year, again, that East Bridgewater is playing West Bridgewater.
Correct.
Right, which I'm excited about. I think that's how it should be. So I'm going to go to that matchup. I'm going to go wide receiver. I'm going to go Dan Chelmo from East Bridgewater. Guy I've seen a couple times. We had him early in the year against Rockland, and then obviously in the playoffs against Hudson. He's kept fairly quiet against Hudson, but that's not necessarily a knock on him. That's just how the game went. But I think in this kind of renewed rivalry game, your seniors are going to have to step up, and Dan is in a position to do just that.
And I like the idea. I think that Coach O'Sullivan over there takes the reins off this week. Ethan Pohl, their quarterback, who is also draft eligible this week. So no tipping picks, but I'm gonna tip a pick. Ethan's going to play at the next level. I could see him kind of going out with a bang in this game. The running back room is returning for them, whereas you look at the receiver and quarterback, both of their kind of big receivers and their quarterback are moving on. So I could see EB saying, all right, let's open up the playbook. Let's throw the ball downfield, on West Bridgewater and see what we can do. So I think it's going to be a really fun Thanksgiving matchup. I feel bad for Rockland, who is stuck playing Manchester Essex, but I think it's EB West Bridgewater it's great to see that game back on the schedule. So good pick, Johnny. All right, I'm going to go to the running back room, and I am going to go with I'm going to go with Wes Griffin out of Silver Lake. I think just a guy that I was so impressed with the couple of times we got to see him this season. Saw him against Abington, saw him against Whitman Hanson. A really dynamic runner, and a really talented player. And I think Silver Lake is getting there, right? Like they're building that program back up. I think what Wes Griffin and the running game this year did for that team to kind of take a step was big. So Yeah, I like Wes Griffin. I'm impressed with the season he's put together, and I'd like to see him on Thanksgiving. All right, Brendan, take us into round three.
Another matchup I think most of the state might actually have their eyes on during Thanksgiving, at least, will be Brockton Bridgewater Raynham. I think Brockton has a slight upper edge in this game, and I'm going to go with Luke Turco as my second running back this week. Always seems to find the end zone. He's steady Eddie, always is able to get at least one, and that usually salvages his day. And then there are other games where he puts up 200 yards on the ground. So hoping for the latter this time.
Yeah, and he's been a stalwart for them in a couple of lean years back to back. I mean, they got back to the playoffs this year, but I just think that like he's been really you don't want to say the consummate pro. Obviously, these kids aren't pros, but he's been a really good leader for that team. Over the last couple of years, he's a great player, and so yeah, I think that's a worthy pick. All right, Johnny.
Yeah, I'm gonna go running back that is extremely talented. I believe he was probably on that list you mentioned, Quinn, coming into the year. Team just wasn't really there, so I feel like we didn't go to him a bunch. But I'm gonna go James Curry from Braintree. They've got a kind of a fun one against Milton. I think that'll be a good game. You know, two teams who didn't have the best seasons, but again, Thanksgiving you throw everything out the window, and obviously James is a phenomenal talent.
Just expected a lot more of Braintree this year. James had so much hype around him. I thought, Garrett Stone's their quarterback coming back this year. Everything was in place for them to take a step forward, and it just didn't quite materialize. And admittedly, we didn't see him for a game this year. We had him last year. I don't think we saw him this year. Um, I think so for me, tough to tell exactly kind of what went on there, but it just didn't come together. But James is a fantastic player. He is a historic player as far as Braintree football goes. So I think an opportunity for him to go out on a high note, and obviously they pulled off the upset last year against the Milton team that went on the next week to win the Super Bowl, and a team that wasn't really resting starters, was just kind of looking past Braintree. I think we all saw the score line of that game and assumed, oh, Steve Dembowski was keeping everything, bottled up until Super Bowl week, and he kind of said that wasn't the case. We just got our butts handed to us, and that was in large part because James Curry was fantastic in that game. So I think he comes back out and has a really big game for them on Thanksgiving this year. All right, that puts me back on the board. I am going to go dip my toe. I'm going to go back into the wide receiver room. And I am going to go. I'm going to go with. Boy, I'm indecisive. There's a lot of kids because I think this is the hardest week of the year for me, right? Because there's a finality to it. Last chance to get some of these guys off the board. So many great seniors that have given so much to their respective programs. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go on the other side of the a game that you already picked from. Brendan, I'm gonna go with the leading receiver for Quincy, and I'm gonna go with Jaden Francois. I think that as Ed DeWitt kind of put it, his own head coach, they're a pass first. I'm sorry, they're a run first offense, and Jaden has still kind of got his numbers and been really, really good for them. Final game for him, I think he goes out and has a big game for the Presidents. All right, Brendan, round 4.
Francois was actually one of the guys on my list. I had to pick two receivers coming up. So I'm going to go to the other side of that matchup. I'm going to stack him up from North Quincy. I'm going to go with Marquise Rodriguez-Smith, probably Galligan's favorite deep threat, and usually makes one Hail Mary catch a game. So I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, somebody that I was looking at as well. I think if there's a duo that's deserving of us stacking, it's Marquise Rodriguez-Smith and Mikey Galligan. They have been so dynamic. They have been probably the best duo on the South Shore this year, or at least in competition, I would say, with maybe Johnny Donovan and Lawson Foley in a game. Obviously, we're not picking from, but I think really, really dynamic and a great duo, and I think another guy, another record breaker, and another guy that's deserving of coming off the board. All right, Johnny.
I'm gonna go. I guess I'll just go second wide receiver here. Well, I've got it. I know we've gone wide receiver from Plymouth South. I'm actually going to go to the opposite side of that matchup. I'm going to go Liam Joyce, Plymouth North. I think that's going to be a good matchup. Plymouth North was an interesting team this year. Yeah, they weren't bad. They weren't great, but obviously Liam is a guy that they look to. So I think he looks to go out with a bang.
Yeah, I think it was Colin Reynolds, losing your quarterback so early in the season can easily derail a team, and they didn't let it. Junior Jake Turchnett stepped in. He was really good. And Liam Joyce has had so many good games for them and is such a big target. And I think a good chance that they get him involved in the passing game on Thanksgiving. So I like it. I like it, Johnny, closing out the wide receiver room. That brings it to me. And I believe I need a running back, a quarterback, and a defense. I feel like we've been playing chicken, you and I, Johnny, on quarterback. And I am going to go with. I'm going to go with. He came off last week, I think. Yeah, I'm going to. Do we have somebody from this matchup? Yeah, I'm going to go with Michael Riley. I'm going to go with Michael Riley out of Abington. There's another Riley waiting in the wings, so it's not the end of the Riley era at Abington, as we'll get a fifth Riley under center for the Green Wave. But Michael's been great. I think that that was a good team this year, and ultimately just came up short against Norwell, and they struggled with them. But Michael's had a fantastic career there. I think he's added a certain dynamism to their passing attack, and really even more so, he's been freaking phenomenal on the defensive side of the ball and just playing both ways for them. He's been so good, and so happy to have him on the board here this week. All right, Brendan, round 5.
All right, I've been debating two names on this list for the last 5 minutes or so. For my second receiver, I'm going to go with Jake Brilliant out of Marshfield. I just feel like the Rams are going to try and put up a lot of points in this game and flex their muscles. Curious to see what Duxbury does. I would not be surprised if they went with their starters for the whole game, but we'll see if that comes back to bite them. You never know. They do have the Super Bowl coming up against Scituate in about a week or so.
I actually think there's no question in my mind. They're going to play the starters. I think that's been kind of Matt Landolfi's. Now it's different, right? Because when Dave Mameron was there, it was never a game that was for the league title. And so when they were going to the Super Bowl under Mameron, we're not playing the starters. We got bigger fish to fry next week. Now it's for the league title. Matt Landolfi has made it very clear we don't take lightly the league title streak. So I think you're going to get a really good game. I'm thrilled to be covering it. Can't wait to get back in the booth this year for Marshfield Duxbury. Unfortunately, this year I think it's one of the best. I mean, there are a lot of really good games this year. I think this is one of the best Thanksgiving games. Certainly one of the most important as far as what's on the line. It is a head-to-head matchup for the league title. And I think that, I think that's great. Brennan, Jake, brilliant. Really solid pick. All right, Johnny.
Yeah, I'm going to go quarterback. I won't show you. This team was bad this year. I will come out and say that. But I'm going to go. I love this kid. I'm going to go Owen Pace from Pembroke. They didn't have a great season, but
I'm going to stop you there.
He's going to go down swinging.
I'm pretty sure he's out injured. It's my bad.
Okay, no problem.
Pivot.
Go back to the old board. Let's see. I'm gonna go quarterback out of Hull. I'm gonna go Luke Dunham. I think Hull, they had an interesting season. It definitely wasn't up to the standard that they've had the last couple of years. So I think Luke is going to try to right the ship as they finish out the year in what should be a pretty good game, I think.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I think that I think you look back and you remember that he was, as a sophomore, a huge piece of that state championship team for Hull. And now has taken over the reins at quarterback in 2 years that have followed after back-to-back Super Bowl appearances. Now they've had back-to-back kind of tough, leaner years. But he's been steady at the top of things there, playing both ways, offense, defense, and just being a really good leader for them. And so I think a guy very, very deserving started. I mean, he walks away. He was a big, big part of that Super Bowl team, and so he walks away with a lot accomplished in his career and a 2-year starter under center for them. And I think a key piece that hopefully won't get lost kind of in Hull history. Really great player for them. All right, that brings it to me, and this week I'm not gonna jump the gun on the defense. I'm happy to take third slot on the defense. I'm gonna go with my running back to close out the positional grouping section of the board. And there's a lot of guys on this list that deserve to come off, and I am gonna go. I want to also go into a matchup that we don't have anybody from. And seeing as we don't have anybody from this matchup, I know he was picked last week, but I'm gonna make it back to back. Give me Aiden Booten from Hanover. I'm beside myself that this kid isn't playing at Gillette next week. I just can't really tell you. I know I've talked about it on a few of our broadcasts here and on air on the Sports Exchange. They just deserved better than what they got last Friday night. It's a shame he won't be playing at Gillette, but I think the Booten family is big Hanover family, and Aiden has been a great captain for them, and so I love his energy, just love everything he's about, and love for him to have a big Thanksgiving Day game, and what I think is going to be a sneaky good matchup, a really really fun game between they and Norwell. So yeah, give me Aiden Booten, the captain. And with that, Brennan, take us into round 6. Give me your defense. Brennan, you're on mute.
Sorry, I forgot I put myself on mute with the cars rolling by the window. So, I was just saying that you could pick a lot of these teams this year because, frankly, you just don't know what happens on Thanksgiving. So, but one thing I do know is that Silver Lake had a really good season, and I'm going to look to see if they can carry that on in their matchup with Pembroke this week.
I like it a lot. Yeah, they did. I think they had a really, really good season. Big steps forward for Mark Killinger's group, and a lot of that was on the defensive side of the ball. So, all right, Johnny, your defense.
To me now?
Yep.
I'm gonna go the Brockton defense. They've got what should actually be a pretty good matchup between them and BR this week. Brockton had an okay season, one that I think they're trending in the right direction. I mean, obviously, when you end up getting Severin in the first round, they didn't really have a sniff in the playoffs, but coming off a tough one in the kind of that play, just general game they played against Attleboro. But I'm going to go with Brockton defense.
I like it. Yeah, I think it's a tough matchup, but I think potentially a low scoring one. I think that's a good pick. I think a good first season for Jalson Silva over at Brockton. I think got them moving back in the right direction. All right, I'm going to close throwing a little love to a team that's playing somebody off the South Shore again. Kind of left out in the cold this year, but give me the Rockland Bulldogs defense. Straight up, a tough year for Rockland, and I would love for them to finish it on a high note with a big win against Manchester Essex, and I'd like that defense to show up and show out. I think they're playing on Wednesday, so we'll get some early returns there. All right, and that'll do it. So let me run it down for Brendan. Quarterback Mikey Galligan out of North Quincy. Running backs Will Bostrom out of Norwell and Luke Turco out of Brockton. And wide receivers Marquise Rodriguez-Smith out of North Quincy and Jake Brilliant out of Marshfield with the Silver Lake defense. Johnny, quarterback Luke Dunham out of Hull, running backs Brady Markowski out of Whitman-Hanson and James Curry out of Braintree, wide receivers Dan Chelmo out of East Bridgewater and Liam Joyce out of Plymouth North with the Brockton defense. And then I had quarterback Michael Riley out of Abington, running backs Wes Griffin out of Silver Lake and Aiden Booton out of Hanover, wide receiver Jaden Francois out of Quincy, and tight end Logan Watts out of Plymouth South with the Rockland defense. All right, we will be at a special edition of our special elongated pregame show. We start our coverage at 9 a.m., coming right out of the 9 o'clock news on Thanksgiving morning. As I will be out at Marshfield on the call for Marshfield Duxbury, deciding the Patriot League Keenan Division title there. Kickoff scheduled for 10, so please join us for that. We're looking forward to it. We'll have the Sports Exchange coming up this week to wrap up all the action from Thanksgiving and get you ready for the Super Bowls at Gillette, which are midweek once again this year. And we will have 2 games for you Thursday and Friday, both 3 o'clock start times. Duxbury and Scituate for the D4 championship, and Randolph taking on West Boylston for the D8 championship on Thursday and Friday, respectively. So that'll do it for us. For Brennan and Johnny, I'm Quinn. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube and follow us on Twitter at SE on WATD for all of your South Shore High School athletic updates. And until next time, this has been the Thanksgiving week WATD Fantasy Draft.